I think my little brother is crazy. At least, I hope he is, because if his loony idea is right, then all of us are being used like a flock of sheep, and that's a pretty gruesome thought. Humans just can't be that stupid. My brother has a dumb idea, that's all. It's just a dumb idea. This whole situation started about 8 months ago. That's when I first knew anything about it, I mean. My best friend Trinja and I were shopping when we noticed a new store where an old insurance office used to be. It was a cubbyhole, really, at the far end of the mall where hardly anybody ever goes. We were there because we'd used that entrance as we came home from school. "Swooties!" Trinja said, pointing at the letters written across the display window. "What do you think they are, Deb?" I stared through the glass. The place had always looked dim and dingy before, full of desks, half-dead plants, and bored-looking people, but now it was as bright and glaring as a health brigade corps office. There weren't any people inside at all, but there were 5 or 6 gold-colored machines lining the walls. Signs were hung everywhere. "Sweets plus goodies equals Swooties," one said. Flavors were posted by each machine. Peanut butter fudge crunch, butter rum pecan, chocolate nut mint, things like that. The biggest sign of all simply said, "Free." I have to admit that the place gave me the creeps the first time I saw it. I don't know why, it just looked so bare and bright, so empty and clean, without any people or movement. The glare almost hurt my eyes, and I guess I was suspicious about anything that was completely free. Still, though, there was this terrific aroma drifting out of there, sort of a combination of all those flavors that were listed on the signs. "Let's go in," Trinja said, grabbing my arm. I could see that the smell was getting to her, too. She's always on a diet, so she thinks about food a lot. "But it's empty in there," I said, drawing away. "They've just opened, that's all," she told me, yanking my arm again. "Besides, machines and robots run lots of the stores. Let's go inside and see what's in there." Do you know that wonderful spurt of air that rushes out when you first open an expensive box of candy? The inside of that store smelled just like the inside of one of those boxes. For a few seconds, we just stood there, sniffing and grinning. My salivary glands started swimming. Trinja turned toward the nearest machine. "Coconut almond marshmallow!" She was almost drooling. "I've got to try one, Deb." She pressed the button, and a chocolate cone dropped down, like a coffee cup from a Kitcho machine. Then a mixture, similar to the look of soft ice cream, filled it. "Want to try it with me?" she asked, reaching for the cone. We both took a taste. It was absolutely the neatest sensation I've had in my whole life. Sweeties aren't cold like ice cream or warm like cooked pudding, but they're a blending of both in temperature and texture. The flavor melts instantly, and your whole mouth and brain are flooded with tastes and impressions. Like that first Swootie I tried, coconut almond marshmallow. Suddenly, as my mouth separated the individual tastes, my brain burst into memories associated with each flavor. I felt as if I were lying on a warm beach, all covered with coconut suntan oil. Then I heard myself giggling and singing as a group of us roasted marshmallows around a campfire. Then I relived the long-ago moments of biting into the special Christmas cookies my grandmother made with almonds when I was little. "Wow!" Trinja looked at me, and I could see that she had just experienced the same kind of reactions. We scarfed up the rest of that Swootie in just a few more bites, and we moved on to another flavor. With each one, it was the same. I felt a combination of marvelous tastes and joyous thoughts. We tried every flavor before we finally staggered out into the mall again. "I'll have to diet for a whole year now," Trinja said, patting her stomach. "I feel like a blimp myself," I told her. But neither one of us cared. We both felt terrific. "Go ahead in there," I called to some grade school kids who were looking at the store. "You'll love those Swooties." "It's a publicity stunt, we think," Trinja told them. "Everything is free in there." In no time at all, the news about the Swootie shop had spread all over town. But days passed, and still everything was absolutely free. Nobody knew who the new owners were or why they were giving away their product. Nobody cared. The mall directors said a check arrived to pay for the rent, and that was all they were concerned about. The health brigade corps said Swooties were absolutely safe for human consumption. Swooties were still being offered free a month later, but the shop owners had still not appeared. By then, nobody cared. There were always long lines of people in front of the place, but the Swooties tasted so good nobody minded waiting for them. And the supply was endless. Soon, more shops like the first one began opening in other places around the city, with machines running in the same quiet, efficient way. And everything was still absolutely free. Soon all of us were gaining weight like crazy. "It's those darn Swooties," Trinja told me as we left the mall after our daily binge. "I can't leave them alone. Each one must have 1,000 calories, but I still pig out on them." I sighed as I walked out into the sunshine. Me too. If only there was some easy way to eat all the Swooties we want and still not gain any weight. The words were hardly out of my mouth when I noticed a new feature in the mall parking lot. Among all the usual heliobiles, there was a tall white plastic box, sort of like those big telephone booths you see in old pictures. A flashing sign near the booth said, "The Slimmer." A short, thin woman was standing beside it. She was deeply tanned, and her head was covered with a green turban almost the same color as the jumpsuit she was wearing. Trinja looked at the sign, then glanced at the woman. "What's that mean?" It means that this machine can make you slimmer, the woman answered. She had a deep, strange-sounding voice. Just step inside and you'll lose unwanted fat. She seemed so serious and confident that I was startled. In the old days, people thought they could lose weight in a hurry, but those of us who live in 2041 aren't that gullible. No pills or packs or wraps or special 24-hour diets can work. There isn't any easy way to get rid of fat, and that's all there is to it. I knew this booth was a scam or a joke of some kind, but the woman acted as if it were a perfectly respectable thing. Her seriousness sort of unnerved me. I looked into the booth, half expecting someone to jump out laughing. But it was empty, stark white, and except for some overhead grill work, it was completely smooth and bare. How could a thing like this make you slimmer? I asked. The woman shrugged. A new process. Do you care to try? 25 yen to lose 1 pound of body fat. Trinja and I both burst into laughter. Ha! And how long is it before the pound disappears? She asked. The woman never even cracked a smile. Instantly! Body fat is gone instantly. She gestured to a small lever on the side nearest to her. I regulate the power flow according to your payment. My mouth dropped open. But that's impossible. No exercise, no chemicals, no starving on a retreat week. No! The woman folded her arms and leaned against the smooth white sides of her cubicle, as if she didn't much care whether we tried a new process or not. Trinja and I stared at each other. I was wondering if the woman had tried her machine herself. She didn't have an ounce of fat. You got any money? I asked Trinja. As she was shaking her head, I was rummaging through my pack. I've got 130 yen. 5 pounds, then, the woman said, taking my money with one hand and setting her lever with the other. She literally pushed me into the booth, and the door slammed behind me. At first, I wanted to scream because I was so scared. This whole thing had happened too fast. I wanted to prove that this woman and her slimmer were a big joke, but suddenly I was trapped in a coffin-like structure as bare and as bright as an old microwave oven. My heart was hammering, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up straight. I opened my mouth, but before I could scream, there was a loud humming sound, and instantly the door flew open again. I saw Trinja's frightened face peering in at me. Are you alright, Deb? Are you okay? I guess she decided not to do anything after all. You ought to get your money back. 5 pounds are gone, the woman said in her strange voice. Trinja pulled me away. I'll just bet, she shouted back at the woman. Somebody ought to report you and that phony machine. We might even call the health brigade corps. She leaned closer to me. Are you really okay, Deb? I took a deep breath. My jeans feel loose. Frowning, Trinja shook her head. It's just your imagination, that's all. What a fake. I think that woman was wacko, Debbie. Really weird. The whole thing thinking slimmer after a treatment like that is your bank account. Nobody but nobody can lose weight that easily. We'll go to my house and you can weigh yourself. You haven't lost an ounce. But Trinja was wrong. I really was 5 pounds lighter. I know it sounds impossible, but Trinja's cow chow is never wrong. The two of us hopped and howled with joy. Then we ravaged her bedroom trying to find some more money. We ran all the way back to the mall, worrying all the way that the woman and her miracle machine might have disappeared. But the slimmer was still there. Within minutes, Trinja had used up her 300 yen and she looked terrific. I can't believe it! I just can't believe it! She kept saying as she notched her belt tighter. 12 pounds gone in seconds! For safety's sake, I'll have to prick your wrist, my dear, the woman said. For every 10 pounds you lose, we give a tiny little mark. Nobody will ever notice it. It didn't even hurt, Trinja said as we walked home, and neither of us could see the tiny blue pinprick unless we looked closely. We were both so happy about the weight loss that we almost floated. All our worries and problems about calories and fat and diets were over forever. In no time at all, the slimmers were all over the city, near all the smoothie stores. They've been a real blessing. Everybody says so. Now there's hardly a fat person left on the streets. A few people have so many blue marks on their wrists that you can see them, but most have just 4 or 5 pinpricks. Nobody really understands how these slimmers work. The attendants, all just as strange sounding as the woman in our mall, get so technical in their explanations that no one of us can follow the principles that they're talking about, so we don't worry much about it. The process is something to do with invisible waves that can change fat cells into energy, which then radiates away from the body. I don't care how the slimmers work, Trinja says happily. Now I can eat smoothies all day long if I want and I never gain an ounce. That's all I care about. Everybody feels that way, I guess. We're too happy to want to upset anything by asking questions. Maybe that's why you don't hear about the smoothies or slimmers on the facts of the Bow Division or read about them anywhere. Nobody understands them well enough to sound very intelligent about them. But people all over Earth are beginning to use them. My cousin in Tokyo faxed to say that they are having them in their area, and people there are just as happy as we are. Except for my brother, Trevor. He's not the least bit happy, he says. Of course, you 10-year-olds worry about weight, so he doesn't know the joy of being able to eat everything in sight and still stay thin.
Suppose the smoothies and the slimmers are run by aliens from outer space, he says. From much farther than we've been able to go. Maybe they have big starships posted around Earth, and they're gathering up the energy from human fat that sent up the Slimmers. Maybe the Swoonies are here so people will get fat quicker so that there'll be more to harvest through the Slimmer machines. Then they'll take the fat back to their planet and use it as fuel.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of! Trinja has told him. Why don't we hear about the spaceships then? Why does the Health Brigade Corps tell us to stop doing this if it isn't good for us? Trevor thinks he has the answers. He says the spaceships are invisible to human detection, and he says the aliens have hypnotized our leaders into being as calm and placid as we all are. The blue marks on our wrists play a big role. He says maybe after each of us has had so many blue marks, we'll be cold from the flock because our fat content won't be as good anymore. He's crazy, isn't he? He must think we all have the brains of sheep. 10-year-old brothers can be a real pain. He simply doesn't know people yet, that's all. Humans would never sacrifice their freedom and dignity just so that they could eat and still be thin. Even aliens all know that. I could quit eating Swooties and using those Slimmers anytime I want to, but all those little blue marks Trinja and I have are beginning to look like delicate tattooed bracelets, and we both think they look really neat on our wrists.